It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. And as always, coming to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. We're here for the next hour to talk Giants football with you as they get set for Sunday's game at Soldier Field against the Chicago Bears. 201-939-4513 is our phone number if you'd like to give us a call and discuss anything about the game that you would like. The Giants are winless on the road so far this season, so they would certainly like to turn around that equation, if at all possible. We did have a nice morning here in East Rutherford, New Jersey, as the Giants went out to practice. The weather not expected to be nearly as nice in Chicago.
No, not quite. It keeps on changing. I don't know if I'm sure you've been checking.
Oh, yeah.
I checked yesterday, and it said it was just supposed to be, but cold and windy. And then I checked this morning, and now it's saying morning, rain/snow.
Yes.
With a chance that it could, it's not supposed to go into game time, but there's a chance because it keeps on changing. If it just gets, pushed back a little bit, this looks like it's going to be the first weather game for the Giants this season.
And needless to say, heavy winds, too. I'm seeing
the
15
winds
to 20
sure.
plus gusts.
Yeah, the wind will be a factor 100%.
Oh, boy, isn't that fun? We should go over the injury report. Brian Daboll, first things first. We'll get the kicking thing out of the way, and then I want Matt to go over the rest of the injuries that we know of as they went out onto the practice field just this afternoon, a little while ago. It looks like Young-Ho Koo is going to be the Giants' kicker. Now, Graham Gano, who told us yesterday that he's got a neck issue, apparently there's a disc problem there. He took a shot in his spine. Now, when I heard that, I think everybody, when they hear that, they grimace, right?
Yep.
He's like, no, this is actually a regular thing. It's not a big deal. It's rather routine. Okay, fine, Graham. If you want to think of it that way, that's fine. I prefer not to think of it that way because I want no shots in my spine, no matter what the issue is, and said that it would not impede his kicking and that he planned to kick today. Well, that got sidetracked. Brian Daboll told us this morning that Gano would not kick today. He would discuss things with the trainers later on this afternoon, and when they have to have their official status report out, they will have to make a determination. He said, as of this morning, though, they had not decided whether or not they would ride with Gano and allow him to kick against the Bears, or if they went to plan B, which would be Young-Ho Koo, who has been here for a few weeks on the practice squad and told us, I guess was it yesterday? He told us that he has been kicking well. He's been under his regular kicking regimen so that he would not be thrown off if called upon.
Yeah, so Graham said yesterday that he was hopeful that he'd be able to kick today. He said, obviously, he just got the shot. I think did he get the shot yesterday or Wednesday?
He did. I don't think he actually determined or told us when the shot was. He said it was on Monday afternoon that the doctors told him he had an issue.
Yeah, so he did say he was hopeful to kick today. It wasn't 100% certain, and obviously Coach Daboll came out and said before practice that Graham will not be practicing. Now, Coach Daboll would not officially rule him out, but as we've come to learn with Coach Daboll, it is rare that he rules a guy out on Friday. He does do it sometimes, but if there is even a 1% chance that the guy is going to be able to suit up, Coach is not going to rule him out, which was the case today. But Coach made it pretty clear it's leaning pretty heavily towards Koo being the kicker. He said most likely it will be Koo. He just would not shut the door completely on Graham being able to suit up. But it does sound like Koo will be making his Giants debut. Mm-hmm. So that, I'm not going to say should close the door on the kicking situation, at least for 1 week, but it's certainly heading that way. Gano was not the only guy that is not practicing. They're out there right now.
Correct.
Coach Daboll said that there would be a few other guys not practicing. Bo Collins, who has a neck injury, suffered last week. He has not practiced at all this week. Certainly puts him on the pessimistic side of being able to suit up. Chauncey Golston, who's been out for several weeks now with a neck injury as well. Darius Muasau has an ankle injury. Again, no practice all week. It's trending that he might be certainly looking like he will be inactive. And the same goes for John Michael Schmitz, who's dealing with the shin injury that he suffered last week. That would lead to Austin Schlottman taking over at center again, which we have seen him now a couple of times because JMS has had a few, various injuries. Schlottman's filled in pretty admirably. So that hopefully won't be, too much of a drop off. I believe those were the guys that Coach said would not be practicing at all today. Those are the ones
Correct.
he mentioned at least. He did say he was hopeful that Jermaine Illuminor, Javon Holland, and Cordell Flott would all be able to play on Sunday. Now, Flott cleared the concussion protocol yesterday evening. He was a full participant yesterday. I would expect him to be a full participant again today, which would certainly put him on pace to suit up on Sunday. Holland returned to practice last week and was limited throughout the week. He was questionable on the final injury report. Obviously did not end up playing, but a whole nother week of practice. Hopefully, as Coach said, hopefully he's good to go. And same goes for Jermaine Illuminor, who was doubtful on last week's injury report, eventually got ruled out. He returned to practice yesterday as a limited participant. So another limited session today. Hopefully, barring a setback, hopefully we'll put him on pace to suit up. Now, one guy Coach did not mention in the group of guys not practicing today was Paulson Adebo. He did not mention him, who Paulson Adebo has not practiced the last couple of days.
Did a lot on the side with the trainers yesterday, though.
True.
He's starting to move around pretty well.
For sure. I would still say even, it sounds like he will likely be listed as limited today, just based on what Coach told us before practice. I would still tend to lean more towards probably being unlikely he suits up after, missing several weeks, only getting in one limited session. It's a knee injury. He's the team's top corner.
I would agree.
Especially with Cordell Flott likely coming back, coaching staff might decide, and the training staff, let's give him one more week to really get back to full strength. Those are the injury updates. Everyone else seems like they've got, a pretty strong chance of suiting up, other than the guys that did not practice today. We'll find out in about, hour and a half or 2 hours when we get the final injury report. Hopefully it won't be quite as long as, it was last week.
Now, interestingly enough, for Koo's NFL career, he's kicked in Atlanta, inside that dome. Now, he did grow up as a high school player in Ridgewood, New Jersey, just a short throw from here. And so he said, I'm very familiar with windy, cold weather, nasty weather. We practice out here on this practice field all the time. And if you know anything about the Meadowlands winds, they're not very kind to kickers. So he said, look, whatever they have to deal with, I should say, in Chicago, Koo does not believe that would be anything that would impede him. He understands what it means to kick in bad weather.
Yeah, and just on a similar note, since we're talking about the wind and the weather, Jackson Dart shared a very similar sentiment when he spoke to the media Wednesday. He did not grow up in Bergen County, but he grew up in Utah.
Yes.
And he said that, where his high school team practiced was in a valley?
It was next to a canyon, so there was a lot of wind there.
So he dealt with wind, he said all of the time. He said he played in high school, he played snow games, so he clearly does not seem to be too concerned about the weather impacting, his abilities and his game too much on Sunday. Now, obviously, strong winds for any quarterback, strong winds are going to have some effect on the passing game, but that goes for both teams. The Bears are going to have to deal with
his throws yesterday? Did you get a chance to watch a few of his throws before they?
Yeah.
I'm not joking, folks. The wind yesterday at the Meadowlands was stronger than it is today. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I saw him just, taking some warm-ups. I swear the ball must have moved 2 feet. Yeah,
the wind yesterday was crazy here, and it's supposed to be even worse in Chicago.
I mean, you baseball fans will remember Doc Gooden's curveball. Okay? Let me tell you something. That ball was moving like a knuckleball. I mean, it was flying. So, I appreciate the fact that Jackson says, he could deal with those elements because he's been in them before earlier in his career. But, that still doesn't change the fact that it's tricky.
Oh, for sure. And, since Jackson took over, obviously he's played very well, but the one thing that, has not been, a big part of his game has been the downfield passing. It hasn't been too much. He's completed a couple, but given the conditions on Sunday in Chicago at Soldier Field, I can't imagine either team is going to have too much, downfield plays, deep throws. It's going to be difficult.
Play the weather in this one. I would say, Parcells was always very, very particular about how game plans would be impacted by the weather. He would always tell Belichick and Ron Earhart, his offensive coordinator, during the week, you know what? We're going to project that there could be rain, there could be snow, there could be wind. We want to have some alternate plans available depending upon if it's going to be nasty in the first half or in the second half, or if it simply means the direction that we're going in, because the wind is just coming in one direction. I want to make sure we have certain segments of the playbook that are designed specifically to be tailored toward the weather. That's what made Bill Parcells a Hall of Fame coach. Okay? He taught me this years ago. This is not something that is to be ignored, and the best coaches will do those things. So I do think that you're right. If the weather throughout the game is poor, we know both teams are going to do all they can to run the ball and throw short stuff. But if there's going to be a half or a quarter or a direction where it looks like you can do some business and the weather isn't going to prohibit you from certain things, you're going to take a chance.
Oh, for sure.
By trying to work with that calmness, if you will, in the weather.
100%. First of all, we also know, just going into this game, the Bears want to run the ball. They want to run the ball early. Yes. They want to run the ball often. I mean, they're one of the most run-heavy teams in the entire NFL. Now, the Giants are, among the league leaders in rush attempts as well. And I think, obviously, Jackson running the ball as often as he does certainly plays a factor in that.
No doubt.
The running backs, especially since, Scadaboo went down, the running backs haven't played, too big of an impact or role in the offense. But yeah, both of these teams are going to try to run the ball to sort of, cancel out the weather a little bit. But we've also seen the short passing game be a pretty big part of Jackson Dart's game so far since he took over as the starter. I would expect to see a lot more of that on Sunday.
On the flip side, the Bears are run. I mean, they're number 2 in the league, just under 150 yards a game on the ground between Swift and Monangai, the Rutgers rookie.
Don Bosco kid.
Big, bouquet of flowers to New Jersey football, right? For sure. Had over 160 yards against the Bengals last week.
Almost 200 yards from scrimmage.
So, big-time game for him. In fact, I saw Eric Bieniemy mentioned, was it yesterday? They were asking him out there in Chicago to compare Monangai to another NFL back that he has seen through his career. He said Kareem Hunt.
Hey, early in his career, Kareem Hunt
was
a very dangerous running back.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So we know what the Bears bring to the table in the running game, and with the Giants next to last in the league in rush defense at over 140 yards a game, I mean, that seems to mesh real well. Bears like to run it. Giants have trouble stopping the run. And weather could be a factor. What do you think the Bears are going to do? Now, at the same time, they love to lull you to sleep with the run and then go with a play action and take a deep shot. That they will do. Will the weather prohibit that? I don't know. Again, it depends on how the front comes in and if it lasts throughout the game or whatever the case may be. But the Bears are much more apt to take deep shots than the Giants' offense is.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Bears definitely want to run the ball, but you're 100% right that they use the emphasis on the run game to also set up the play-action game. Caleb Williams, his average time to throw this season, I'm not sure if you saw the stat, his average time to throw this season is 3.24 seconds.
Yeah.
That is the longest a starting quarterback has taken to throw on average in a season in at least the last decade. Since Next Gen Stats started recording that is the longest time to throw for a starting quarterback. So they definitely will use the play action or use the run game to set up the play action. But again, with this supposed wind that's coming, I don't know how willing Ben Johnson is going to be to want to call those downfield shots, because if a ball gets caught up in the wind, who knows where that ball is going to end up. Probably not where Caleb Williams wants it to. So we'll have to see. And you also have to keep in mind, of course, with Ben Johnson, he's got a bag of tricks. I mean, last week, the Bears had 2 different plays that were non-quarterbacks completing or attempting a pass or completing a pass.
Total of 4 different guys attempted a pass last week.
4 different guys.
4 different
so
guys.
it was 2 that completed it,
Yes,
I guess?
yes.
I mean, DJ Moore threw a touchdown pass to Caleb Williams.
I mean,
which we obviously saw the Detroit Lions do that for years under Ben Johnson. Last week, I mean, they've been doing it in bits and pieces in Chicago this year. I feel like last week was sort of like the coming out party for the whole like bag of tricks, but you better believe he's got more tricks up his sleeve that he's going to pull out on Sunday.
I think the weather will prohibit him from doing that.
You don't think they're going to do any trick plays?
I don't. You don't mess around with that. You got enough to deal with Mother Nature. I don't think you want to mess around with trick plays.
At least if the game is close, which we expect it to be, I think he will pull out something from his bag of tricks at some point.
One other item before we get to the phone calls at 201-939-4513. That is, the Bears are by far the number 1 team in takeaway ratio, plus 13. They have done a sensational job of taking the ball away. They lead the league in interceptions. They've also got a ton of fumble recoveries, so they have the most takeaways, and they have the best takeaway ratio. That's why they're 5-3. All right, let's not pull any punches here, because their defense, the metrics across the board, are kind of in the Giants' neighborhood. They're both of these teams are allowing like 4 touchdowns a game. I mean, that's just the way it is. Neither team is really stopping anybody, but the Bears, because of their ability to take the ball away, have been able to take advantage of a lot of those situations. They've had a lot of short fields, and this is why they've got a winning record, and the Giants, unfortunately, do not.
Yeah, overall, the Bears have the 29th ranked scoring defense. They have the 26th defense in terms of yards allowed per game. But that takeaway stat that you just said is, again, that's what set them up so well in great field position and has led to the Bears having top 10 offense, or the number 6 scoring offense and number 4 in total yards on offense. But they have 2 players tied for the league lead in interceptions. Kevin Bayard, who is, since he entered the NFL, is the NFL interception leader. He doesn't matter where he's playing, he just finds the ball, always. But they also have Tremaine Edmonds, a linebacker, who has 4 interceptions this season. I can't remember halfway through a season a linebacker already having 4 interceptions. That is crazy. They have playmakers on defense, which is why I'm a little surprised that their defense has struggled so much. Now, their defense has dealt with a lot of injuries. Their secondary is very depleted. 2 of their starting defensive backs are currently on injured reserve. So I guess that the injury bug has hit them, which has played somewhat of a role. But despite their struggles in a lot of different areas on defense, they're not great against the pass or the run, but they find a way to get to the football and to force turnovers. The Giants have been, other than the Saints game, the Giants have only had 1 turnover on offense since Jackson Dart took over as quarterback. Mm-hmm. This week will be a very good test on ball security for the Giants, because the Bears are going to attack the ball every chance they get.
And it's probably going to be cold and wet.
Yeah.
201-939-4513. Let's go to the phones. And Coach Marvin in Delaware is first on our program. Good morning, Coach.
How you doing, Paul and Matt?
Hi.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing all right. I just wanted to call to say a little bit about the defense. I remember in the summertime, Daboll was talking about Shane was in the lab when they drafted Abdul Carter.
Yes.
Saying he's in the lab and he's creating for this. And I use that term lab also. But when I'm in the lab, I'm actually creating something. I haven't really seen a lot of creativity with Abdul. I don't know if it's I know they have to sub him in and out. I don't see a lot of creativity in the defense to say that's what was happening. I don't know if you guys see anything different. To me, it looks like line up, beat the man in front of you. I see a little bit of a twist here and there, but nothing creative. And that could be the personnel they have, and that's why they're not doing it. But I just found that interesting that they haven't done that.
I agree with you, Coach, in that there have been stunts or twists, however you like to identify those kinds of plays, when Carter then is looping around to the inside. I like when they do that with him. I don't think I've seen it as enough as I would have liked, but I agree with you. That seems to be perhaps the fanciest thing that they've done with Abdul Carter so far this year. I'd like to see some more things, but maybe they feel as a rookie, and you know the deal sometimes, they don't want to overwhelm these guys. They just want to keep it basic and let him do what he does and see where his skill set is and see how much he can handle mentally. And quite honestly, to be honest, Coach, and I think you'll also give a little bit of understanding to this, the Giants' defense as a whole has badly underachieved. And when that happens, it's kind of hard to start working on one player and saying, let's bring out the best in him. Because what good is that if the whole unit is kind of, flipping and flopping around the field?
Yeah, that's a little tough to, get so creative with this rookie who obviously is a tremendous talent, but it's difficult to get creative when you're playing from behind most of every game. There's only so much you can do when you're playing from behind and the other team is just, running the ball over and over again against you.
And I agree with both of you, and I'm not saying I'm with you on that. My thing is, the way I used to teach is the first thing I need to say to players, especially my star players, is my main thing I used to say was, if you can't take criticism, I can't coach you.
Sure.
And I feel sometimes we have some players that can't. I hear Carl Banks, and I'm with him 110%. He tells it like it is, and it's guys that don't like to hear it. And if you're not willing to hear it, I can't teach you anything. And I feel that's what's happening. I feel that, and you said this early in the year, Paul. I believe it was it was in August, I think you said something. You had concerns. Well, this was last year. You had concerns about going from a 3-4 to a 4-3.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm wrong with that.
Well, what I was hoping, Coach, what I was hoping is that the Giants would beef up the defensive line to the point where they would be able to use some 4 defensive lineman fronts with guys with their hands in the dirt. Now, Chauncey Golston was an important free agent signing. I happen to disagree with most. I don't know if we disagree on this, but I know John, I think Lance, I think they disagree with me. Chauncey Golston, for me, is a run-stopping defensive end. He plays a role, in my opinion, when he's best suited to be a Justin Tuck type of guy who is a run-stopping, edge-stopping defensive end first, then also gets after the passer and could potentially play some 3 technique. But I personally believe he's best suited in a 4-man defensive line with his hand on the ground, and I think in certain matchups, and of course he's been unavailable for most of the season because of injuries, I believed that in certain matchups he would have been very valuable with a 4-man defensive line. Because of what has happened with his availability or that lack thereof, I don't know that the Giants have guys that they can use in a 4 defensive down line front. The only combination you might be able to use now with who's left, you may be, and I don't know if this is really good for their skill sets or if it really works, is put Alexander and Robertson Harris on the outside, putting Nacho and Dexter on the inside. You could line up those 4 potentially with their hands down. And that might be a strong front on rushing downs on 1st and 2nd down. It might work. I don't know.
That's my point. Because we're playing a 4-3 down lineman, even though we may be in a nickel, it's still 4 downs, guys down. The guys we have, it doesn't matter. It does matter when you say they're edge rushers. You have edge rushers playing defensive end.
And they're not the same.
They're not the same.
Absolutely not.
Myles Garrett is not a Brian Burns.
Correct.
I love Brian Burns. That's my man. I saw him on Players Lounge.
Yep.
Outstanding person, outstanding player. But he's not a Myles Garrett. Those types of, or Strahan, or those types of defensive ends. Those were defensive ends. They were not edge rushers.
Correct.
They were defensive ends. We're playing a 4-3 with two edge rushers, and the one coming off the bench is a red edge rusher. And they play it like edge rushers. That's the way they're built that way.
Yeah.
And I think that causes our problems against the rush. My thing is this, is either the scheme doesn't fit what we have, because people like Banks wasn't this bad his first year. He wasn't. Banks is bad. And he's been bad for the last 2 years. Is it the scheme? Because who wanted Banks more than anything in that draft? Who was the person banging the table for him? Wasn't that Martindale?
He was part of that. He was part of that crew. Jerome Henderson was at the top of that list, though. He badly wanted Banks here.
Yeah, Banks' physical tool set up perfectly with know the type of defense that Wink wanted to run.
Yep.
Right. So they may not fit. These guys may not fit, because if you look at it, the confusion in the defense. Some people feel this may not be the right calls or the right system for them. Is it the system? I don't know. I can't answer that. Is it the system, or we're not intelligent enough to play the system? Because how many times we see the defensive players lined up wrong, don't know where they want to go. In the last 2 games, I saw running backs in the flat wide open for touchdowns. It happened in the Philly game, and it happened last week in the 49ers game. The back was wide open in the flat. Either we're not paying attention or we're not in the right scheme. And I'm not saying either one is right and either one is wrong. I don't know. They're the ones that need to know that. And you have to make players accountable if they're not. And that's the part where it goes back. If you can't take criticism, I cannot coach you.
Well, Coach, I will add this before we let you go. I want to make this very clear. There is some attrition now going on in the linebacking core and in the secondary over the last few weeks. And attrition is part of that equation. We can't ignore that. It is part of it, and you know that as well as we do.
Right.
I want to leave you with one other note, and that is, according to Stats Inc., and they do a lot of data collection as well as a lot of these other services. I do tend to trust them more. They've got Abdul Carter with 31 hurries, which does lead the Giants, and also 7.5 knockdowns of quarterbacks. So, as far as they're concerned, he is the number one pressure guy on this defense, even though Burns has the 11 sacks and leads the NFL. They're looking at Carter, and they're like, they got him for 31 hurries. And by contrast, that's only 20 for Burns. Even though he's got the 11 sacks, he's only got 20 hurries. So obviously, I don't, despite what we just said earlier in the call, I don't want to say that Abdul Carter is totally being misused, because he leads the team in pressures.
Yeah.
No.
And he's among the league leaders in pressures. I think he's ranked 8th in the NFL in pressures. Unfortunately, though, he has not been able to convert those into sacks, which conversely, Brian Burns, with, what'd you say, 20 pressures, has one of the highest rates of pressure to sack conversion rate, because he's hit home on, nearly half of those pressures.
So Carter is still being effective, and they are getting some good usage out of him. So I don't want to let our conversation drift into, well, they don't know how to use Carter, or he's not being used properly. I don't want it to go there. Anyway, Coach, we got to run.
I just wanted 10 seconds.
Go ahead.
And I agree with you. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying within a system, you play the best you can within that system without creating anything for you. And he does that. He does with what they tell him to do.
Yes.
But it's something wrong, and it says, and this is my last part, is whatever happened in that Denver game, it's still there. And it's what I believe is belief. If you don't have belief in the calls, if you don't have belief in what's being you being taught, you lose that. You lose that passion. And I feel, I'm not saying it's true, but I feel that the defensively it looks like, and we have injury, but they lost some belief. and they don't play with them passion. That's all I have.
All right, Coach. Be well.
Thanks
for the call. 201-939-4513. Did you want to add something about Golston at all?
Yeah, no, actually, I did. What you were saying about, the role you kind of expected him to have when we signed him, I agree with you. I kind of saw him, I know it was a couple of years ago, but I kind of saw him as the role that like Jihad Ward played a couple of years ago, who was that, setting the edge, run defender who would contribute a little bit as a pass rusher. He had a little bit of sacks and pressures, but the main reason he was out there was the run game and to help set the edge, which obviously, as we know, that has been an issue for the Giants throughout the season. And I kind of agree with you that I think at least part of it, not all of it, part of it is the fact that Golston just has not been healthy enough to get out on the field.
Nor Micah McFadden.
That obviously played a big role as well, losing one of your starting inside linebackers in, first half of week 1 threw a wrench into the run defense. But, we'll never know. But hopefully Golston will get healthy and then we can see, at least somewhat of an improvement in the run game. But I do think that might have been a role that he could have played on this defense, and that probably would have helped improve the run game at least a little bit from what we've seen.
Yeah, and Ward did go down on the dirt some. He was more of a stand-up guy. I still think Golston's better down, but in terms of being able to effectively help the rush defense, we totally agree on that.
Yeah.
He should have been a component, and just hasn't been available. 201-939-4513, and let's see if we can get to another phone call before we do some of our promos. Giovanni in Jacksonville. Oh, don't tell me it's like 80 degrees and sunny. Please don't do that, okay? Go ahead, Giovanni. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Paul and Matt, how are you?
Good.
We're doing the best we can.
Yeah, I hear that. So I'm a first-time caller. I've been listening to you guys
Thank you.
2022. So
Appreciate the call.
I just want to say you guys do a really good job through all the media team. You guys put out a lot of good stuff. So just saying thank you as a Giants fan. And
Cool.
I know it's been really hard and difficult for the last few years, but I got to say I'm just very concerned with the team's morale right now. I got to agree with the last caller too. Coach had a lot of good points. He pretty much hit everything that I wanted to actually talk about. But as far as the morale of the team goes, you guys sense anything different offensively or defensively? And what do you guys think about utilizing Abdul Carter more as a linebacker from his experience in Penn State and switching out roles between edge and linebacker for running downs? Because I feel like he can make a huge difference and impact.
All right, why don't you take Carter? I'll take the morale question.
All right. Well, we did see Abdul Carter play a little bit at linebacker early on in the season. Right when Micah McFadden got hurt, he played a little bit in that role, and he played solid. But I think we've seen Abdul at his best when he's rushing the quarterback and playing his I guess more natural position. I think it looks like Darius Musa might not be able to, or likely won't be able to suit up this weekend. So maybe they revert back to Abdul at least getting some playing time at that linebacker position. But I mean, the Giants want the best players playing, I guess, at their best positions, the positions that they could just play most naturally. And I think we all want to see Abdul Carter getting after the quarterback, which you don't really do that often at linebacker. Could he play a somewhat of a role there, especially this weekend, given Musa's injury? Yeah, I would not be surprised at all. But I don't think putting him there as, primary role next to Bobby Okereke, I don't think that's the best role for Abdul in this defense.
And as far as the psyche of the team goes, they took 2 huge right crosses to the jaw with the fourth quarter loss to the Denver Broncos, followed by the Scatterboo broken ankle dislocated ankle. I know I don't want to get into medical terms here, but the ankle injury suffered in Philadelphia. Back-to-back weeks with the fourth quarter letdown, and then Scatterboo, who was such an Energizer bunny for this team, as is Jackson Dart. But you had 2, right? You had 2 Energizer bunnies between Dart and Scatterboo, and then Scatterboo went down. And that says nothing of the fact that Malik Neighbors went down really early in the season, and he was also a guy who could give you a lot of juice and electricity. So I don't disagree with you. I think the psyche has been badly bruised here with this team. I don't see guys in the locker room moping. I don't see them feeling sorry for each other. I don't see them, with their heads down. I won't go that far. It hasn't gotten there yet. but I do believe they certainly have been badly bruised.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson kind of even spoke about it after this past Sunday's game. He said, of course, it's very tough to lose. None of those guys are practicing, putting all the hard work in all week, and are not going to be disappointed come Sunday if the team falls. But I agree with everything you just said, Paul. I mean, we see the guys in the locker room every day. They act the same as they did in the beginning of the season. Obviously, a loss on Sunday. The next day, especially when they're going over the film and we're not in the locker room on Mondays, I would assume, those days morale might be a little bit low. But come Wednesday, when the next week sort of starts, the practice week starts, it is all focused towards this upcoming Sunday. They completely put the previous week behind them. What's done is done, and they just focus on doing whatever they can to win this upcoming week. We've seen it throughout the season. We saw it after the Broncos game, after the Scadaboo injury. Obviously, it didn't lead to wins the following week, but the guys are acting, the same as they did at the beginning of the year. They're still putting in just as much hard work, and I do think, obviously, with any team, losing takes a toll. No one wants to be 2-7 in that locker room. I can promise you that. But it's not, affecting. It doesn't seem like it is affecting their psyche, I would say.
Giovanni, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your perspective on that. I'm just more worried about the culture for the organization as a whole, with all the negative, talk about the team and the morale and everyone's outside perspective. I know the players don't really pay attention to that, but as fans, I think we're more concerned with the losing culture. We don't want it to affect all the rookies because they're really talented, and we just want them to play their best ball. So I think they need to just, come together, have one person take the leadership position on defense and offense, and just, rally the troops and kind of just play their best ball. So looking forward to watching the game this weekend. Go Big Blue.
Okay. Thanks for calling. Please do it again.
Thank you, Giovanni. And I get what he's saying from the fan perspective. I
yeah.
get it. It makes total sense.
I do want you to pay attention to one thing, though. It would be very easy if things are falling downhill, or the mudslide is coming downhill, if you will. It would be very easy at the end of a game just to basically collapse, fumble, throw an interception, fall apart, and just basically fall on the sword, so to speak. Jackson Dart doesn't do that. I mean, he says he wants to play every play to the end of a game because he said, look what happened in Denver. You never know what could happen. So I want to play every snap. I hate to lose. I will never give up. And his attitude is certainly admirable. It's infectious, and it shows that he hasn't lost any of that spark despite the doldrums of the losses. He's been bruised like everybody else, but he hasn't lost the fire. So I don't think you need to worry about that, because what you saw last week, the Niners were in complete control the second half of that game. And to some people, and I've said this on other shows, Big Blue Kickoff on Monday, and I think I said it on another show last night or Wednesday night. Here's the thing about Dart. It would have been very easy for him, even if he's in the game, not to try to reignite a flame on that offense. But you know what? They had 2 fourth-quarter possessions, and he led them to 2 touchdown drives. Okay? This kid wants to learn something from every snap, and he wants to be productive with every snap. That fire has not extinguished. I think that's important, because when he does what he did Sunday, and I understand big picture, that's what I'm talking about here. There's value there. Little picture, the game, it means nothing. It's garbage time. Your team's getting crushed. The Niners are answering every time you try to get up on your knees. They're kicking you back down again. So small picture, game-wise, it meant nothing. Those 2 touchdowns were garbage time. I understand everybody out there who wants to be disgusted, aggravated, frustrated, and wants to say garbage time is irrelevant. I understand why you say that. But if you have enough of perspective and big picture, you see that that's exactly how you want Jackson Dart to respond with those 2 fourth-quarter touchdown drives, because that proves that he has not fallen into a loser's mentality.
Yeah, I agree. You want your rookie quarterback to, not stop playing until the very final whistle, till there's full all zeros on the clock, as he spoke about the other day. you want to instill that mentality into your young rookie quarterback who you hope to be the leader of this franchise for the next decade plus. On the flip side, I will just say, especially after watching what happened with the Washington Commanders the other day, and I know he was asked about this, Jackson, on Wednesday, if the Giants are down 3 possessions and there's about 3-4 minutes left on the clock, we don't need to see Jackson running with the ball and taking unnecessary hits.
That's a different issue entirely. That's a
I think
separate question.
The whole entire fan base, I feel like, would agree with, or I've seen them, tweeting this throughout the week. I'm all for everything you just said. I want Jackson to be out there still trying to lead the team to points, even if the game is out of hand, even if the game is over. But especially, throughout the game, we want Jackson to not take unnecessary hits, but especially when you're at a point where it is pretty abundantly clear that there's not going to be a comeback. It's just almost physically impossible. That is the time of where we don't need necessarily Jackson to take those big hits. Like last week, he had that one run against the 49ers where he was on the sideline. The game was already out of hand, and he could have easily just stepped out, and instead he kind of lowered his shoulder and initiated contact with the 49ers defender. A situation like that, I would rather him just take a step out. You get the same amount of yardage, and you don't have to take that big hit on your shoulder. Even though he looked like he was looking for it, obviously. He was looking for the contact. Those are the sort of plays, especially late in the game that's out of hand. I kind of wish Jackson would just take a step out of bounds.
You just melted 3 different topics into one there. Because one topic is Dart's self-preservation no matter what time the game is in.
Well, yes.
Is that.
But
That's topic one.
I understand him fighting for extra yardage in close games or early on in the game, fighting for that first down. That I can understand.
Right. And at any time during the game, when it's relevant, that's fine. But so topic one is he has to understand how to preserve his own body for his own good. Number 2, you got to figure out whether or not he should or should not be in the game, and that's not a decision that we're paid to make.
Nope.
Number 3 is if he's going to be in there, I do want him to have the fire and the spark for every snap that he is on the field. And whenever he's taken out of the game, that's out of his control. He cannot control whether or not he is taking snaps. When he is in the game, though, I want him to show fire. But again, going back to topic 1, he's got to be smart about it.
I was going to say, you could show fire, but in a way that doesn't put yourself so much at risk.
No doubt. But 3 topics kind of meatloafed into one. Line 3, David in North Carolina. You're next on the program. Hello.
Hello. How's it going, gentlemen?
Very good, sir. How are you?
Good. I kind of point back to Coach Marvin's opening call there, and kind of, whether you want to say criticizing coaching or doing something different. To me, you guys stated the obvious. We're definitely beat up, linebacking core, secondary. So, and then you've stated some very good points. I appreciate as well about the conditioning. Conditions not looking too great this coming Sunday. So, maybe that helps the beat up secondary. In this game to help cover some things. But it also emphasizes what I think you guys were alluding to, that hey, if the Bears were going to come in running the ball, they're definitely going to be looking to run it now, which with the way we've been playing it isn't good. So that leads me to this. Yes, we've got injuries. Hey, Michael McFadden, great player for us, and think a lot of him, but he was here last year racking up tackles, and our run defense wasn't very good. So what troubles me is the run defense being such an issue when you have a man with the talent and size of the Dexter Lawrence. And that's what I really wanted to focus on was, it doesn't mean that having somebody like that's going to give you a top 10 rush defense, but they're usually respectable. I think about, obviously, we had Damon Harrison here. I think about growing up the big pluggers like Teddy Washington, Sam Adams, those type of guys. And when you're talking to star players, some people, like Coach Marvin, unfortunately, the game we're playing in today, you have to coddle guys a little bit and maybe have to go about it a different way. And I'm not saying they do that with Dexter, but if I was Shane Bowen, especially with the conditions you guys laid out, this would be my approach to the game this week and maybe going forward this season. And I would go to Dexter Lawrence and say, I know there's a lot of talk out there about, Have you lost interest? You know, have we taken it? Are we taking it too easy on you? Not holding you accountable? Is there an injury going on with the elbow lingering, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know what Dexter. All I know is when I look on the tape, you're commanding double teams, and maybe you're not beating them like you did in the past, but you're still commanding them. So let me, as a coach and a coordinator, take the heat for the lack of you getting sacks. And what I'm asking you to do, Dexter, is I want to put you right over the center, back to nose, down in and down out. And I don't care if you're getting any pressure up the middle. To Coach Marvin's point, maybe I start disguising some blitzes where Abdul Carter can come crash the middle from an inside linebacker position. But, Dexter, I want you right over the center, playing nose, and you're going to eat up 2 blocks every time the ball snaps. And, daggone, we're not going to get run up the gut on anymore. Mm-hmm. We may get run on the edges. We may get, creased out there. But up the middle is going to stop. And it's going to stop this Sunday because of the conditions and how much teams just disrespect us. There is no reason, if you put big man in the middle of that defense, over the center, down in and down out, don't line him up to the left or right and get cute and get greedy wanting that Dexter Lawrence pressure because it hasn't been there this year. And he eats up a double team every time. There's no reason, whoever we have playing linebacker with Bobby Okereke, that they can't hit the gaps and fill the gaps, and the safeties come downhill, and that should help immensely solve the run game right there. But it's going to take a coach with the bravery to say, hey, I know sacks are sexy, I know the stats are sexy, but right now we're getting gashed, and we can't stop anything because our corners are beat up. We've got weaknesses out there. We need to strengthen something up because right now it's a leaky boat, and you can't fix all the leaks. You just can't. Mm-hmm. So to me, that would be my approach to this game. And maybe for the rest of the year is putting Big 97 right over the center and saying, hey, my friend, let me take the heat for you. I don't care if you don't get a sack this year. You're going to be a run plugger for the rest of this season. And I'll take it off there and get your thoughts.
Well, it's not a bad idea. Thank you so much for the phone call because there are so many different ways you can go here. In all honesty, there really are. The one number I will give you, which is something that everybody has to chew on when they start trying to hypothesize what the Giants might be able to try. That is Next Gen Stats, which just came out this week with a number that Dexter Lawrence has been double-teamed on 60% of his snaps, and that is the highest percentage of anybody in the National Football League.
Second year in a row.
That number did come out this week. That was not a Giants number. That was not just about playing nose tackle or playing in the different gap as John talked about on Monday. Next Gen Stats says, period, most double-teamed player on defense in the league this year, Dexter Lawrence at 60%. That's just a fact. So anything that you want to do to hypothesize how to help this defense, you do have to take that as a very significant part of your equation.
100%. I think I guess some of the frustration maybe from fans' perspectives is, as I just said, it's the second year in a row he led the league in double team rate. But last year he was, still playing at that all-pro level prior to his injury. Mm-hmm. He had 9 sacks in the first, 8 games of the season, something like that?
Imagine that. He missed the last third of the season.
Yeah. He was leading the league in sacks at one point. So I think
that's how superhuman he was.
100%. I think that's just what the frustration stems from. It's like, this is not new, but it just last year he was still that all-pro, Pro Bowl force, and this year the production has not been there, not close to that level, which I can understand that frustration. We don't know if something, in terms of his recovery from the last year's injury, maybe still lingering, is still affecting him in some way. It could be. We have no idea.
I'm just going to throw one tiny observation out there while you say this. I want to interrupt for one moment because last week there was a practice, and it was the first one all year that he practiced without the elbow brace. Just an interesting fact.
I did see him have it back on, though, this week.
Then he put it back on.
So now, maybe it is still affecting him.
And no NFL player is going to admit that injuries have impacted his play for two reasons. One, he has too much pride to do that. Okay? He's not going to do that. And he's certainly not going to tell the opposition that, I don't have, and again, I'm being hypothetical. Player X is not going to tell the opposition, oh, I don't have as much strength or as flexibility as I used to have in my arm. You know why? Because they're going to look to take advantage of that every single opportunity they get. They will target it. So no player, and I know Dexter Lawrence has said he's fine, no player is going to tell you that he's playing with a specifically injured limb. It's not going to happen in this league. It's just not practical. So is it possible? Is it possible that since I've only seen him in one practice without the brace this year, is it possible that something might be up? I don't know the answer to that because Dexter, as per par for the course, is telling everybody he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be, lingering effects from the
Could
injury.
be.
I don't think it's like a new injury or anything like that.
Could be a preventative so that he doesn't aggravate it or make it occur a second time. Yeah. Could be a number of things. It could also be psychological. Folks, if you've ever played sports, all right, in a competitive nature, and you had to wind up wearing goggles or wearing a brace, all of a sudden, I've come into many athletes in all my years of covering sports who will tell you psychologically, it can mess them up. And they got to get over the hurdle because either they're going to play with the brace and get over that and do what they're supposed to do, or, you know what? They're going to get rid of the brace. And sometimes the trainers with the school, if it's a college program, or the team, if it's a pro program, are going to say to the player, no. We're recommending, medically speaking, you wear that thing. Well, then you have to wonder, what is the potential barrier that may be psychologically impacting that player's performance?
Yeah, and just going back to something the caller said, we've obviously seen Dexter be probably, wreck the most havoc lining up right over the center. So I don't disagree with him at all about,
Correct.
That's probably a good place for Dexter Lawrence to
Correct.
line up. The thing is, though, I don't know if, putting him there every single snap, I don't know if that's necessarily going to just automatically boost the run defense because, I've said this the last couple of weeks and each week we've seen it come the following Sunday, but the Giants are getting gashed more so on the outside than up the gut. It's the runs to the outside the tackles, that is just gashing this defense week in and week out. Whether it's, the edge guys struggling to set the edge or the normal starting defensive backs not being out there, and then you're having backups there, injuries at linebacker, whatever the reasons might be. I'm not going to pinpoint one thing, but
there are too many.
Yeah, but it's really been the runs outside that the Giants have been like almost historically bad, at least in terms of the last, decade. Since Next Gen Stats started tracking all these different metrics and analytics, the Giants have been among, at least 2 weeks ago, they were the worst at stopping runs to the outside in the last decade. And I can't imagine it's gotten much better these last two games.
And I want to make something clear too, and this is a good point that you're bringing up, Matt, because Kayvon Thibodeau has played well as an edge setter. But here's the problem. Okay, if you are the edge setter on Thibodeau's side, and he is sustaining his piece of real estate, he's holding up that blocker, he's not giving any real estate up, and he forces the runner to the outside, well, that goes down as a win for him. He won his assignment. He did not let that guy cut it up inside or run at him. He forced him to the sideline. Well, now it's up to the corner or the safety or one of the inside backers to loop around him, get out there to the sideline, and knock that guy out of bounds or tackle him. You see? And that's why it's important for people to understand. Kayvon Thibodeau has played very well against the run this year. In fact, the last 2 years, he's played very well against the run. So don't misinterpret or misunderstand that he's an edge guy, he's on the outside, and teams are running to the outside, so he must be terrible. That's not true. He can consistently do his job, but that means the other guys who are being set up by what he's doing are not doing their jobs. It's important to differentiate that.
100%.
201-939-4513. If somebody wants to get in, we'll try to get in another call or two. Matt or Pearson, what do we have on the Giants huddle this week? I think something new just went up, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah, we had an interview with Tyler Newbin, and just talks about the season and how they can get better in the run defense. Kind of good interview, though.
Well, again, as a safety, right? As a safety, he's one of those guys who has to line up some of the run fits from the back end. And when guys are being funneled to different spots, he's one of those guys who has to come up and plug it.
100%. And, hopefully Javon Holland, if he's able to return, he will help with that. Even Cordell Flott, he's obviously the starting corner. Obviously, he's not necessarily out there for his run defense, of course, but, just getting your starters back should provide just an overall boost to the defense. Obviously, Flott's return is way more of an impact on your passing game, pass defense, which, thank God he's hopefully back, because Rome Odunze and DJ Moore is not a cupcake matchup wide receiver duo to go up against this week. So, slowly this defense is starting to regain some of its health. Hopefully that will have an impact overall, but especially when it comes to the run defense.
We have 2 minutes left on the program, and let's go to Phil in North Carolina. You're going to wrap us up today. Hello. Phil? Phil, are you there?
So, Paul.
There you are.
So, Paul, I was listening to what you were saying on the run defense, and I coached. I was a defensive coordinator in middle school for the middle school kid for about 8 years. So, how I taught the DNs would be to go upfield about 3 yards and invite the runner to cut
inside.
In between.
Yeah, you could do that too.
No, inside. Yeah.
Sure.
So, and if they wanted to go outside, then they would have to have a significant bend or arc, right? That would give ample time for the outside linebackers or the corner to come up on run
or the
defense.
Safety for that matter. Sure.
So when I heard what you were saying, it almost sounded the opposite of that philosophy. And
no, not at all.
Interpret what you said.
Yeah, not at all. We agree totally, but there is another part to this which I left off only because a lot of people are looking at Kayvon and saying, well, he's out there on the edge. How come people are running out there to the sideline? Well, that's because that he is not the guy who necessarily is supposed to track the guy out to the sideline. If someone is funneling out to the sideline, he's the one who's spreading that guy out to the sideline to hopefully make him run out of room. But the other, as you say, the other job of Kayvon is to also cut that off and make the guy come inside. And hopefully there's another defender there waiting to gobble him up. There, no question. He has multiple responsibilities. Okay. You're right.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right.
No
good.
problem.
All right. That's what I wanted to clarify.
I appreciate that you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
201-939-4513.
I will say just on that one point, I will point out that 2 weeks ago against the Eagles, that long Saquon Barkley touchdown run at the beginning, that's exactly what happened. Brian Burns pushed the left tackle, was it Jordan Mailata, back, setting the edge, but then Saquon cut it inside, got that lane right inside Burns.
And nobody was home.
And took it 65 yards to the house because no one was there. So,
well,
again, run defense is a team effort.
It has to be.
It can't just be one guy doing his job, it's got to be everyone doing their jobs. Otherwise, you're going to have plays like that Saquon run where he has a wide open lane and just takes it 65 yards.
You've been doing shows with me long enough. It's a spider web.
Yes.
Every strand of the spider web impacts another strand. That's the way this game is played, and it's why it's the greatest game in the universe, because it is a spider web. Folks, that'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com and the Giants YouTube channel. We will be back again on Monday following the Giants game on Sunday in Chicago at Soldier Field against the Bears. Once again, it's a 1 o'clock kickoff, which means at 11 a.m. you can tune in to WFAN for the 2-hour Giants pregame show. You can also get the pregame show for 2 hours after the game on WFAN. And immediately following the game, you get the 1-hour post-game show on MSG live with video. So we'll get locker room reaction.
And Giants.com.
And that always streams on Giants.com as well. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm too busy doing the show.
I
can't watch it on the app.
I get to watch you after the games.
Don't be afraid to use the app, especially if you're out and about. As long as you're not driving. Okay. I don't encourage that. That's not a good idea. So in any event, this has been Big Blue Kickoff Live presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. And as always, we have come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We will see you next time.